Now, the irony, and that's the second time we've used that term irony, and I think we're using it correctly, the irony of quarterback injuries this year, the one guy who stayed healthy wire to wire is Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. But his top offensive threat and arguably the most valuable player on that team, if not the most valuable player in the league, Tyreek Hill, had that ankle injury on Monday night. He tried to play through it. We saw him at times in the second half of the game, not nearly enough. On the sideline, a lot. If they would have had him, they quite possibly, if not probably, win that game. He's day-to-day after suffering that ankle injury on a horse collar tackle. I mean, it looked like a hip drop, but when you look at it more closely, it's also a hip drop horse collar tackle.
It is.
And that's one of the reasons why they're going to get that hip drop tackle out of the game, just like the horse collar tackles out of the game. You don't want your best players or any of your players getting injured by getting dragged down that way. And that wasn't a situation where we just got to get the guy on the ground. I'm not saying that it was a dirty play. I'm just saying that is a prime example of you didn't need to tackle him that way. You didn't need to do that to get him to the ground. You aren't coming from behind trying to get him down. There are other techniques you could have used to get him down in that moment, although the counter to that would be he's Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
You got to take any chance you can to get the guy on the ground, or you're not going to get him on the ground.
That's what happens. I think you explained it just right? He's going, oh, no, it's Tyreek Hill. He might turn the corner on me. Let me just get any hand on him possible. And then when you talk about, the gloves, as you've heard me talk about, the sticky gloves, once they grab on, they're stuck. But, yeah, it was almost a double whammy there. It was right hand on the nameplate, and then it was pull the legs through and drop the body weight on the ankle. And, my son will tell you and my wife will tell you at home, I thought he broke his leg or tore his ACL. I was, oh, gosh, he's hurt. He's done for the year. I thought it was horrible. And then, of course, you saw his reaction, and I went, oh, no. Saw the replay. It was good to see that it was high ankle-ish, right? It gave me hope to go, okay, I don't think it's like horrible. But that tackle's got to go, certainly. And, man, yeah, Tyreek Hill, he's got to learn to protect himself almost like a quarterback because he's that important to the Miami Dolphins' success and what they do and if they want to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, legitimately. They can go to the Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill. If he's not on the field, I don't think they can go to the Super Bowl. That's how important he is to that football team. He is the MVP, in my opinion. I've been banging the table on that. And you see in that game, let alone, he comes out, all of a sudden the offense can't move the ball. All of a sudden he's back in the game. Oh, boom, 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 boom. They go right down the field. Oh, he's back out. Oh, we can't move the ball again. I mean, I think the other night was a shining example of how important he is to the Miami Dolphins and how special he is as a player.
And he's going to have to play to be the MVP. I mean, you could make the argument.
Right.
If the Dolphins fall apart down the stretch and he's not playing, that proves his value.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to vote him number one MVP if he doesn't come back and get close to the single-season receiving yardage record or get to 2,000 if the Dolphins are the 4 seed or if they don't even win the division, which is entirely possible. All the Bills have to do is make up a game in the next 3 weeks. In Week 18, Bills-Dolphins is AFC East championship game, which is amazing how quickly things can change in the NFL.
To your point,
December.
It's up for grabs in the AFC. It's up for grabs, especially with the schedules of these top teams coming down the stretch, and I know we'll get into it in a little bit here.
But the point is this, day-to-day, and Mike McDaniel, coach of the Dolphins, was asked yesterday if he's optimistic we'll see Tyreek Hill on Sunday when they host the New York Jets. Here's McDaniel.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about Tyreek in general. I know if there's a will, there's a way. He, it's a little early to be that confident either way. That was a painful ankle that he took the time to kind of warm up, work, and get to a point where he could feel like he could provide what we need him to provide until he flat out tells me that there's no doubt that he's going to play. You always have to plan for everything.
Now, see, there's a fine balance here. How much do you defer to Tyreek Hill saying, I want to play, versus recognizing there's a point where he just shouldn't play? The 4 games left for the Dolphins, the one that they are most likely to be able to win without him is this one. And if you want to give him a little time off and give him a chance to heal up and brace for Cowboys, Ravens, Bills, this is the time to do it. But then you've got this guy who's obsessed with 2,000 yards.
Yep.
Obsessed with it.
Yep.
Still on pace for it, but
Right.
you miss a game, you ain't getting to 2,000 yards. And how do you manage that personality, especially because you already know, and this is the Jamal Adams category, Stephon Diggs category, when you have a guy who became disgruntled where he was, there's a greater chance he's going to eventually become disgruntled with you. You got to tiptoe on eggshells around him at times, and this is a prime example of where Mike McDaniel is going to have a hard time. I mean, they did not shut him down on Monday night. They should have. They deferred to him. He said after the game, his wife told him, get his ass back in there. And he tried. And there were a couple of times I was like, boy, he looks fine to me.
I know, right.
But apparently he wasn't fine. He was fighting his way through it and potentially making it worse. That's the problem. So you keep pushing stubbornly, and the next thing you know, you're done for the season. It's better to have him for the playoffs. And that's where Mike McDaniel is going to have to summon all of his emotional intelligence and just that way he is and set the stage for Tyreek Hill to come to the conclusion on his own, Chris, with no one else telling him. He's got to come to the conclusion on his own that the right thing to do is to protect himself for the playoffs and not risk being unavailable after Week 18 because he's so obsessed with getting to 2,000 yards.
Yeah, agreed. That can't take precedence or be the most important thing in life compared to the bigger picture, what you're talking about, the value to the team, the stretch run here, last few games, win the AFC East, be available for the playoffs, all of that. That's got to be the number one goal here and the number one thing in mind when you talk about the health of Tyreek Hill. We kind of just hit on it. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to beat some of the better teams in the football, let alone maybe win the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. Absolutely. He is the guy that changes their offense because of his talent. He's the guy that changes the defense and how they play you. I mean, tomorrow I'm hoping I could show you some pictures about what Tennessee did on Monday night. We're so worried about Tyreek Hill that they did some things that were unsound that Miami didn't take advantage of, where I go, Miami, you can't let them not cover the backside receiver and just let you throw the ball all game long, and we don't throw it to them because they're so worried about Tyreek. They did some crazy stuff. They called Miami's bluff a little bit. Miami didn't totally adjust, but that's the Tyreek Hill effect. You almost have to go, wait, we're going to have to cheat one area of detail or soundness to stop the Dolphins when Tyreek Hill's out in the field because he's that special of a talent. Let alone, Mike, he's got that quality that we talk about a lot with the 49ers. And, of course, the Chiefs have some of those guys. A psycho in a good way. It's go through the wall. It's, yes, I want to play. I'm a psycho. I don't even think twice. All I know is play football. And, yes, coach, I'm going out to do it. And to that point, and like you're saying, that's where they got to protect himself from himself and protect himself from, endangering the whole organization.
Yeah, that's right. And that's going to be the challenge for Mike McDaniel because, look, this isn't bash Tua, but without Tyreek on the field, Tua Tagovailoa is a different quarterback. We saw him have an opportunity, 2 games, side by side, and they ended in a way that it was staggered. We saw Tommy DeVito take his team down the field for a game-winning field goal against the Packers. And then we saw Tua Tagovailoa have a chance to do the same damn thing. And he could barely get out of the gates. And it's just one data point in a broader sample size, but it's a data point without Tyreek on the field. Tyreek on the field, you have any doubt they're getting down and getting in field goal range with Tyreek on the field and healthy, fully healthy, 100% healthy? So, hell, they probably would have converted a first down or two on the drive sandwiched between the 2 Tennessee touchdowns.
Right.
If Tyreek Hill had been able to play. He was out there for maybe 3rd down.
Yeah.
He's not even out there as a decoy to soften up the run defense a little bit. So they need him. And Tua's done well. Tua's done great this year. But Tyreek Hill is more valuable to that team, and Tyreek Hill is the more viable MVP candidate from that organization if he can keep playing. And that's the question. Can he let go of the thing that has fueled him all season long, the accolades he's never enjoyed? No receiver's ever been MVP. No receiver's ever gotten to 2,000 yards, and focus on the ultimate team goal, which is winning a Super Bowl, which he already has done.
Yeah.
See, that's where you have to pivot your incentive. You want to prove to the Chiefs you can win a Super Bowl on your own. They proved they could win one without you. You need to prove you can win one without them. That's part of the Jedi mind trick that someone needs to do on Tyreek Hill to maybe get him to sit down this week. Because really, if he does sit down this week, MVP's gone, 2,000 yards probably gone, although who knows? He'd probably potentially have a 300-yard game to make up for the slack. But that's, I think, this challenge. And especially if Mrs. Tyreek is saying, get your ass out there and play, you're working against that as well, because that's where part of his motivation is coming from.
Yeah, right.
He goes into the halftime, and Mrs. Tyreek says, get your ass back out there.
Yeah.
And the team might have been saying, oh, we don't want your ass back out there. What do you do? How do you deal with it? That's just part of the delicate nature of a personality that's already proven. You press the right buttons, and he's going to want out of town.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, he wants to play, and he's fully invested. The one thing I've never heard different about Tyreek Hill is passion for the game, going to work his butt off all the time, crazy worker, so crazy into his health, everything that goes into it. So, of course, he's a freak of nature as is. His healing powers, as you say, are quicker than yours or mine or other normal people in the world. He's got a lot of money and access to people to help him out here in this situation, And hey, the heart wants to play. He wants to be out there. That's just what he is, and he's married to a wife, obviously, that feels the same way. She's saying, "Hey, honey, we didn't come here to go sit and watch these other guys out in the field. We came here to watch you. So you better get your butt out there and play." And I don't know. It reminds me of my mom and things she used to say to my dad back in the day. She'd tell him to suck it up.
Tell me more.
She'd tell him to suck it up.
Whoa.
I never told you this story. In 1993, Dad wakes up. They're going to play the Arizona Cardinals mid-November day. He wakes up with vertigo. He had vertigo, right? I don't know if he had it, how he got vertigo, if it was just Reggie White driving him into the turf too many times throughout his career, or he naturally got it, but he had vertigo. So he woke up, and he was stumbling all over the house, and they called the Giants, and, oh, gosh, Phil's all out of whack, blah, blah, blah. It was a 4 o'clock game, thankfully, that day, so he went to Giants Stadium early. They got him medicine, whatever. He played, blah, blah, blah. Steve Serby, the famous New York sports writer up here, he calls my house the next morning on a Monday, and my mom, this is, back in the day when you dial the phone and call somebody's house, my mom answers the phone, and she goes, what did you say to your husband when you saw him leaving the house wobbly and all that? She told him, she said, I told him to suck it up and get out there and play today. So the next day on the New York Post on the sports page, it says, Phil's wife says, suck it up. And so that will always be a story that I remember growing up, and it was
great.
A lot of fun, yeah.
Well, and football players want to play, and the people around them want to see them play football, and that is what you're working against.
Yes,
when you have tremendous historic goals like Tyreek Hill has had all season long. To have it pop like that, you could see the frustration emanating from him after he ran off the field. This whole idea, and he said himself after the game, he thought his ankle was gone. Mm-hmm. And I do need to add one last thing about the Tyreek Hill ankle injury, because given that we were, unwilling to ignore what our eyes were telling us with the Joe Burrow situation, I got a lot of Bengals fans that want me to keep that same energy when anybody else may be playing fast and loose with the injury report. What Tyreek Hill said Monday night, I got the quote here. I've obviously been dealing with some ankle injuries this whole season. Well, I went back and looked at their injury reports. This whole season would suggest he's been on the injury report every single week with an ankle injury. It's not the case. Now, he was on week 14 and week 13 and week 3. It doesn't specify which ankle. It could have been different ankle injuries. I don't know. But he hasn't been on the report all season long. So, Bengals fans, I did the due diligence. I checked it out. And it's just another example of how if he really did have ankle injuries all season long, there are many imperfections in the injury report. And just as basic as left ankle, right ankle. I think they should supply that information, not just for kickers and punters, but for everybody, because we got two ankles. Saying ankle doesn't really help narrow it down.
Well, I can't remember exactly the game, but I can remember him, up the left sideline, someone tackles him from behind, and I want to say it was like the Carolina Panther game, maybe it was the Broncos game in week 3, and he came up, hobbling. And then, of course, the New York Jets Black Friday game, he came up hobbling, if you remember that correctly as well. So he's been dealing with it. There's no doubt about it. And I think the big thing is, like you're talking about, and everything there where the NFL needs to figure this out, again, is he getting treatment in the facility, right? Tom Brady made it popular to get treatment outside the facility and go find other famous, rich, people in that area or in that, profession to help them out. And therefore, so that's the angle when I see a Tyreek Hill. And again, he's got a lot of money and can have a staff around him or people like that. Did he go into the training room to get treatment, or does he go see his own people at 6 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that kind of go through his body and get him that way? And that's where the NFL's got to figure out how to detail that, police that, whatever you want to say.
And when you wonder how that can happen, think of the force of personality involved. Hey, Tyreek, we need to check out your ankle. No, I'm good. Right? Hey, Trevor Lawrence, you should take the cart to the locker room. No, I'm good.
Yeah, right.
I'll walk. Even if it takes me 2 hours,
right.
I'll walk. There's a mentality there that it's hard to push back against. When you're talking about the guys who are the alphas, the ones who are out there on the field making it happen, and you're trying to tell them something they don't want to hear, no, as far as the Dolphins are concerned, maybe they don't know. Just like the Patriots. They don't know because it's all being done under the auspices of Alex Guerrero.
Right.
Tom Brady was getting his body worked on. So that's a good point. Now, hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.